During a recent unhinged press conference, Donald Trump doubled down on his persistent public threats to legally punish his political opponents and parts of the media he doesn't like, including, for example, a reputable pollster whose great sin was getting a poll about Donald Trump wrong. And unfortunately, there are already disturbing signs that the media is going to comply with the future president. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, this is part of the press conference that we talked about in a previous video, so this is something of a follow-up. I said that Trump said some things there that merited their own discussion, and this is one of them. So I want to play a couple of clips, and we're going to unpack it together, starting with this one here.
I want to expand on the defamation lawsuits. Could you see moving that to other people with individual platforms, social media influencers, people that...
Or newspapers, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I do. I think you have to do it because they're very dishonest. We need a great media. We need a fair media. We need, it's very important. And we need borders. We need walls, but we need borders and we need fair elections.
Okay, so for context, Donald Trump, and we're going to get into this at the very end, but for context, because the reporter said I want to expound on defamation lawsuits. Donald Trump sued ABC News and George Stephanopoulos, who is the host of ABC's This Week. He's a former Clinton press secretary, I believe, because George Stephanopoulos said that Donald Trump was found liable for rape. He was not. He was found liable for sexual abuse and defamation. We'll get into all of that. But that's the context. That Donald Trump sued ABC News for defamation, and ABC settled with Donald Trump and paid him $15 million. Okay, that's the context. So now you have Trump, the incoming president, saying, yeah, we're probably going to expand the defamation suits because you have to have fair media. They lie so much. Well, Donald Trump has a documented 30,000 lies when he was president of the United States. Should people be trying to sue him for defamation? What does Donald Trump mean by a fair media? Because I agree, you do need a fair media. But it's pretty clear that what Donald Trump means, based on things he has said in the past, fair media to him is media that simply praises him, that never says anything critical about him, that never platforms people who have critical things to say about him. Remember, we talked about this in previous video. We have the Truth Social posts where he went off on Fox News repeatedly because Fox News dared to have anti-Trump ads, to have Kamala Harris ads, even though MSNBC had anti-Kamala Harris ads and Trump ads. It's what news networks do. They have ads. He was pissed that they would dare have ads that were critical of him and supportive of his political opponents. So fair media to Trump is constantly praising Trump and attacking his political opponents. That's dangerous. That's the sort of unhinged, creepy shit you see in openly authoritarian countries. That's what Trump wants. That's not what Democrats want. It's what Trump wants. And he gets into more specifics.
I see others. I have a few others that I'm doing. I see others. I have a few others that I'm doing. I'm going to, as an example, I'm doing this not because I want to. I'm doing this because I feel I have an obligation to. I'm going to be bringing one against the people in Iowa, their newspaper, which had a very, very good pollster who got me right all the time. And then just before the election, she said I was going to lose by 3 or 4 points, and it became the biggest story all over the world because I was going to win Iowa by 20 points. The farmers loved me, and I loved the farmers. And it was interesting the way she did it. She brought it down 2 weeks before. She said I was going to only win by 4. That was a big story. But that was good because she brought it down from like 22 points to 4 or whatever the number was. Way up. Way up. An easy win. Never even thought to go there. I respect them. I love them. And they understand there's no reason to go there because she brought it. I see others.
He wants to sue Ann Selzer and the Des Moines Register for publishing her poll for defamation because her poll, and he admits, she's a reputable pollster. She was the most accurate pollster, one of the most accurate pollsters in the country, which is why that poll got the headlines it did and got the attention it did. But because she got the poll wrong, he has no evidence whatsoever. I mean, number one, I don't know that a bad poll or even a disastrous poll could possibly constitute defamation, but I'm not an attorney. But what evidence does he have that Ann Selzer tanked the reputation of her own damn poll knowingly just to try to screw Donald Trump? Did she really? Think about this. What does Trump think that Ann Selzer was trying to do? The poll was obviously incorrect. Obviously. So what possible motivation would Ann Selzer have to defame Trump by knowingly producing a fraudulent, defamatory poll? Because if it's not true, how could it possibly have swung the election? But she was doing it to try to influence the outcome of the election. How? How could a poll, which turned out to be false, swing the outcome of an election? What does Trump think was possibly going to happen? Why would she? There's no reason for her to do the thing that Trump seems to believe that she did, because it wouldn't have affected the outcome of the election, because it was clearly wrong. The poll was clearly not reflective of the reality in Iowa, let alone, the Midwest states, let alone the country. There's no way for the poll to have influenced the election in any way. There's two reasons right there. And number three, as a consequence, Ann Selzer's poll, think about it. As a consequence, Ann Selzer, her reputation has been greatly reduced, right? Because she got a poll completely wrong. She has been the target of right-wing scorn and derision. And we'll get into what she has now made an enemy of the sitting or the future sitting president of the United States. As a matter of fact, Trump had publicly called for her to be investigated, not just sued for defamation. A totally fake poll that has caused great distrust and uncertainty at a very critical time. She knew exactly what she was doing. Thank you to the great people of Iowa for giving me such a record-breaking vote despite possible election fraud by Ann Selzer. What's the election fraud? And she ended election polling. Like, she's done polling. She's done. What possible voter fraud could there have been, or election fraud? How could it have possibly affected the outcome? It makes no sense. What the hell does he think she was trying to do? What the hell did he think could be done with that poll? But that's my point. To Donald Trump, election interference and defamation are just doing things that Donald Trump doesn't like. If you criticize Donald Trump, defamation. If you produce or permit ads that are negative or critical of Donald Trump and promote his opponents, that's defamation and election interference. If you interview or take questions from his political opponents who are permitted to criticize him, that's defamation and election interference. If you have a bad poll, even a really bad poll, which can't possibly affect the outcome of the election in any way, that's defamation and election interference. Folks, this is unhinged. And this isn't coming from just a celebrity. This is coming from a man who on January 20th will be the most powerful man on earth, who has a long history of trying to weaponize the justice system and the legal system to crush his opponents, his critics. He sued Bill Maher, Real Time with Bill Maher, Enlightened Centrist Bill Maher, over a joke. He sued ABC and George Stephanopoulos. And that's in his capacity as a citizen. Think about what he will do or could do or has threatened to do as the most powerful man on earth, as the ultimate leader of the FBI, a man who has called for the investigation and prosecution of his political opponents, going after a pollster, potentially, for just getting a damn poll wrong. You don't see this shit with the Democratic Party. Vice President Harris doesn't do this. President Biden doesn't do this. And he's supposed to be the leader of the party of free speech and free press. It's unhinged. Imagine if a Democrat did this. Imagine how you would react, you viewer who is likely pro-Democrat. Imagine how you would feel and how you would react if one of us did this. If Joe Biden did this, if Kamala Harris did this. A very good chance that you'd be like, no, that's gross. They don't care. They don't care. They just don't care. Ann Selzer talked about this. So it's fascinating. Former pollster Ann Selzer hits back on criticisms over Iowa poll. They are accusing me of a crime. And she's right. People have been accusing her of a crime. I'm not here to break any news. If you were hoping that I'd landed on exactly why things went wrong, I have not. It does sort of awaken me in the middle of the night, and I think, well, maybe I should check this. This is something that would be very odd if it were to happen. But we've explored everything. The Des Moines Register, in an unprecedented move for transparency, has put online our crosstabs, our weighting system, and my analysis that I've not needed to update because it was pretty complete. We don't know. Do I wish I knew? Yes, I wish I knew. Selzer said during a discussion at the Iowa Press alongside moderator Katie Henderson and others. But Trump has threatened her with suits and investigations. And he's doubling down on, and he's not even been inaugurated yet. He's not. The election was like 5 weeks ago, man. 6 weeks ago. He hasn't even been inaugurated yet. This is, I know I'm preaching to the choir, probably, but maybe a conservative, a liberal, curious, person will stray across this. Folks, please just ask yourself, if this were a Democrat, if this were Joe Biden, if this were Barack Obama, Kamala Harris, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, how would you feel? And if the answer is you'd be pissed, then you should be pissed here. It would be gross if a Democrat is doing or threatening to do the shit that Donald Trump is doing or threatening to do for the reasons that Donald Trump is doing or threatening to do them. It would be gross if the shoe were on the other foot. And I say that as a member who would wear that shoe. I say that as a member of the Democratic Party. You should expect more and demand more from Donald Trump. The question is, will you? Well, I tell you who we should also expect more from: the media. And unfortunately, there are disturbing signs, and we're going to play this clip. It's about a 5-minute clip. It is well worth your time. We have seen evidence that the media is looking to capitulate, at least the mainstream media, to the future president, who has not even been inaugurated yet.
ABC News will pay millions of dollars to settle a defamation suit with Donald Trump. It all stems from George Stephanopoulos using the word rape instead of sexual abuse in an interview with about E. Jean Carroll's lawsuit against Trump, in which that was discussed. Under the terms of the settlement, the network will issue a public apology, pay $1 million for Trump's attorney's fees, and pony up $15 million for a, quote, presidential foundation and museum. CNN's Brian Stelter joins me now. Brian, this is pretty unusual and disturbing. What do you make of all this and this ugly legal fight that is trying to be avoided by ABC and Disney?
Right. Trump has a long history of filing lawsuits, including against news outlets. Most of the time, those cases get thrown out. Judges see right through those frivolous cases and throw them out. Trump right now has litigation pending against CBS, for example, over a 60 Minutes interview of Kamala Harris. So these cases oftentimes do not work out for Trump. But this ABC case is a major victory. I talked to renowned First Amendment lawyer Floyd Abrams last night. He said, look, there's no way to say other than this is a big win for Trump. It's going to embolden him to file more of these suits. But as Abrams said, he called it disturbing that this could turn $15 million could be paid around the use of the word rape versus sexual abuse in that interview on ABC's This Week. Look, Stephanopoulos has been a Trump target for a long time. He was very aggressive in this interview that aired in March. So Trump decided to file a suit about a week later, and a judge did not throw it out. A judge let it go forward through the discovery process. So it's possible that ABC decided to settle this, Jim, because there might have been embarrassing emails or text messages on ABC's servers that were going to become public. Everybody remembers that's what happened to Fox News when Dominion sued Fox. So this might have been a case where ABC is avoiding public embarrassment by paying $15 million.
And we'll continue with this, but again, for context, George Stephanopoulos, again, I mentioned this earlier, but he interviewed Nancy Mace, MAGA Republican, U.S. Congresswoman, been critical of Trump, and then she loves Trump when it's convenient, whatever. So they had a really contentious conversation. And during the conversation, Stephanopoulos inaccurately said that Trump had been found liable for rape by a New York jury. He was found liable for sexual abuse and defamation, okay? The rape part came in, and we talked about this previously. I probably should have had it up. Was because of the presiding judge in the case later on clarified that when the jury said that Trump was liable for sexual abuse and defamation, they meant, and again, trigger warning and warning to those who, don't want to talk about or hear these salacious things. This is what the judge said. Judge Kaplan clarified, listen, when the jury said that Trump was liable for sexual abuse and defamation, what they found that he did, he digitally penetrated against her will, E. Jean Carroll, against her will, her vagina with his finger. And according to Judge Kaplan, in common parlance, people would call that rape. Okay? So again, to clarify here, the finding that Miss Carroll failed to prove that she was raped within the meaning of the New York penal law does not mean that she failed to prove that Trump raped her, as many people commonly understand the word rape. Indeed, as the evidence at trial recounted below makes clear, the jury found that Mr. Trump did, in fact, exactly that. Kaplan said New York's legal definition of rape is far narrower than the word is understood in common modern parlance. The former requires forcible, unconsented to penetration with one's penis. That's according to New York penal law. But he said that the conduct the jury effectively found Trump liable for, forced digital penetration, meets a more common definition of rape. That's why so many people have accurately referred to Trump as an adjudicated rapist, because according to the judge, that's what the jury found. And George Stephanopoulos said, well, he was liable for rape. No, he was liable in terms of the jury verdict, the jury judgment, liable for sexual abuse and defamation. He was not found liable for rape. And I'm not a lawyer, but that could be where the case for defamation might have potentially been made, right? Because one appeals to the judge saying what effectively the jury found based on common parlance, and the other one is a legal term, a legal phrase, liable for sexual abuse and defamation, not liable for rape. That's the context for all of this, okay? So with all that in mind, and knowing what the presiding judge in that case said, get back to this clip.
But look, there's a lot of people that say that payment is embarrassing as well. So this is not the end of the story.
Well, and there are a lot of different ways to talk about this, Brian. I mean, Donald Trump has said a lot of things about people, places, you name it, that have been false and so on. And it just strikes me as a bit rich that, he's going to be the recipient, or his presidential foundation is going to be a recipient of this kind of large settlement. And I have to ask you whether or not you think there's just going to be a chilling effect on the news industry just as he is coming into office because of this. I mean, I suppose it's almost a rhetorical question because the answer is yes.
The answer is yes. Media lawyers are worried about this. They're preparing for it. They are preparing their newsrooms for it with the expectation of more lawsuits, more leak investigations, more subpoenas in the months and years to come. There's a great AP story about this morning saying there's a balancing act right now for the press between being fearful and just being prepared. You're doing our jobs, but being aware of the climate. And maybe that's partly what ABC was doing here. ABC, as a source there, said to me, we needed this problem to go away. They were trying to explain the payment that way. But now, as you said, $15 million for Trump's future museum. I imagine there will be an ABC News Hall of fake news. There will be some attempt to troll as a result of this. And more seriously, we are in a climate where more of this kind of litigation is expected. And of course, it's not just Trump suing news outlets. Trump himself is facing multiple defamation lawsuits. So, this turns in multiple directions, right? And what some see as accountability for mistakes on live television, others see as currying favor, a settlement to curry favor with the next president.
That's the dangerous part. And again, it's hard not to look at it that way when you have a future president and former president who repeatedly publicly threatened to use the levers of government power against people who are his political opponents and people in the media that he finds too critical of him. So in a coldly cynical, calculating way, it makes sense that ABC would want to quickly throw out some cash and call it a day and get this over with. But yes, people should be afraid of the potential chilling effect as a consequence of this. And again, he hasn't even been inaugurated yet. He's just won the election. He's not even the sitting president yet. And I'll remind people too, I totally understand and I am also frustrated that ABC decided to settle this, but I'm not an attorney. Perhaps the case was just completely unwinnable. Seems unlikely, right? Defamation cases are hard to prove against particularly somebody like Donald Trump, a public figure, right? The standard is so high because of the First Amendment. But for lawyers to determine. What I will say to people in Trump world taking a victory lap here, and I saw, I'm blanking on his name, Jonathan Turley, the legal analyst that I so despise from Fox News. You know, he had a lot to say about ABC's defamation settlement for $15 million. He didn't have a lot to say about when Fox News, his news network, settled the defamation case, as Brian Stelter points out here, for $800 million. 15 million is a lot of money. 800 million, a lot more money. And Fox News had to settle a defamation case against Dominion Voting System for signal boosting Donald Trump's lies. CNN has never had to do anything like that, as far as we know, or pay anything close to that amount, nor MSNBC or anybody else. So if settling defamation cases is a sign, inherently a victory, I'm fine with that. Then that means that what Fox News did was orders of magnitude worse than what ABC did against Trump. So, food for thought. But again, unfortunately, MAGA doesn't rely on consistent standards or principles. They're just shameless in their hypocrisy. So they'll categorically reject the Fox News defamation settlement and hang all their hats and hopes on this ABC $15 million payout, which unfortunately may have a chilling effect on the press being critical of Donald Trump in the future. He hasn't even been inaugurated yet. Yeah. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.